Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into a source that really sets an incredibly high standard for spiritual life. It's called A Treatise on Prayer.
Yeah, and this isn't your typical gentle self-help guide. Not at all.
It's more like a rigorous blueprint, isn't it? It lays out this very specific, step-by-step climb towards what it calls pure and generous love.
Exactly. It's dead serious about perfection. It basically assumes, look, if you really want the highest level of spiritual achievement, you need a very structured path.
So our goal today, for you listening, is to kind of pull out the practical tools from this, and maybe some of the more surprising, almost shocking priority rules it gives.
And show how these, frankly, radical demands might still apply, even if you're living a busy, active life out in the world.
Okay, so let's unpack this. If pure and generous love is the goal, the destination, where does this journey actually start? What's step one?
Well, the absolute foundation is what it calls the doctrine of Christ crucified. And this isn't just, abstract theology.
It's practical.
Very. It means achieving a real transformative emotional shift. You need a deep, genuine love of virtue, and at the same time, a real, visceral hatred of vice. That's the first hurdle.
A pass-fail, almost.
You could say that.
And once you've made that initial moral commitment, that shift,
Yeah.
the treatise sends you somewhere specific internally.
Yes, it directs the soul straight into what it calls the house of self-knowledge.
The house of self-knowledge.
And listen, this isn't some cozy little retreat. It's demanding. It's solitary. It's a place of constant, unflinching introspection. The instruction is clear. Stay there. Stay separated from what it calls worldly consolations. You need to maintain watching and constant prayer.
Wow, that sounds pretty intense. Isolating, even painful. Why this focus, right at the start, on knowing your own flaws so deeply?
Because the whole engine for this climb, this ascent, it's driven by two specific things.
Yeah.
One is that intense desire for pure love, the goal itself.
The pull towards it.
Right. But the other is a necessary, almost gut-wrenching fear. A fear that comes directly from seeing just how deep your own imperfections run, how easily you could fail.
Ah, I see. So the desire is so strong that the fear of messing it up actually keeps you focused?
Precisely. It keeps you in that demanding state of self-awareness. It's aspiration balanced by a painful dose of reality.
That makes sense. But this idea of being separated from worldly consolation, that's where it feels, almost impossible for most people today. People with jobs, families.
Absolutely. And that's where the treatise offers something quite brilliant, actually. It gives this core teaching that acts like a universal key. It makes the path possible for everyone, regardless of their state in life.
Okay, I'm listening. What's the key?
It's this simple, powerful idea. A holy desire is a continual prayer.
A holy desire is a continual prayer. That's a big statement.
It is. It means the attitude, the direction of your will is what truly counts, more than your physical location or whether you're in formal retreat.
So my internal state basically overrides my external circumstances.
In essence, yes. If that holy desire is genuine, firm, habitual, then your soul is effectively praying constantly, no matter what else you're doing.
Okay, but how do you know the desire is genuine? How do you prove it's not just wishful thinking?
Good question. The text links it directly to action. It says you demonstrate lively faith, genuine desire through perseverance and virtue. Your actions have to back it up.
Right, so it's not just a feeling. It shows up in how you live day to day.
Exactly.
So how does this holy desire idea change things when I'm, say, doing the dishes or stuck in traffic or dealing with a difficult meeting at work?
It completely reframes it. The treatise teaches that every single exercise you do, whether it's internal work on yourself or something you do for your neighbor, if you do it with real goodwill, is virtually a prayer.
Virtually a prayer, so it elevates the mundane.
It absolutely does. The key is keeping that internal state, that habitual holy will, active and firm. If that underlying will is strong, then things like scheduled prayers or your daily responsibilities, they'll get done at the right time, naturally, without resistance.
I see the connection now. The inner desire fuels the outer diligence. Okay, speaking of scheduled prayer, the text does talk about vocal prayer, right? Like sing psalms or paternosters.
Yes, it acknowledges that for the imperfect soul, the soul still progressing, vocal prayer is necessary, if only to keep the mind from just wandering off into idleness.
Keeps the mind occupied, basically.
In a way, yes. But, and this is crucial, vocal prayer can never just stand on its own. It absolutely must be joined to mental prayer.
Okay, join to mental prayer. What does that look like in practice? My lips are moving, saying the words, but what's my mind supposed to be doing?
While the words are being spoken, your soul, Your mind has to be elevated, lifted up in God's love. And at the same time, you should be actively considering your own failings, your defects.
While praying.
Yes. Especially in light of the ultimate sacrifice, the text mentions the blood of God's only begotten Son. The spoken words are like the container, but the real content has to be that contemplation, that self-awareness, that connection.
Okay, now this is where I remember the treatise getting really interesting. It gives this incredibly radical priority rule. It completely flips the script on religious duties sometimes.
You mean what happens if?
Exactly. What happens if I'm doing my vocal prayers, I'm halfway through the required psalms, let's say, and boom, I feel this sudden, intense internal connection, a divine feeling.
Yes. This is probably the most striking instruction in the whole text.
Yeah.
It explicitly says that the moment the soul feels her mind drawn, disposed by a divine visitation.
A divine visitation? Like what specifically?
It could be anything, really. A sudden deep insight into yourself, maybe profound self-knowledge, or an overwhelming wave of contrition, sorrow for sin, or just a pure surge of divine charity, of love.
Okay, so the moment that hits.
The moment it hits, you must immediately abandon the vocal prayer. Stop saying the words, right then and there.
Wait, what? Stop. Stop the formal act of worship, the thing I'm supposed to be doing.
Immediately stop.
But that goes against, well, pretty much all standard advice. Finish your prayers, fulfill your obligation.
Exactly. That's why it's so radical.
Right.
The treatise elevates the internal, spontaneous, real connection above the external structured form. That mental prayer, the one that happens through that sudden feeling or desire, what it calls the affection of desire, that is considered perfect prayer.
Perfect prayer.
When God visits your soul directly, you don't make him wait while you finish reciting a verse. You attend to the guest.
So the inner experience trumps the outer rule. The disposition is everything. Wow. That's a major reprioritization.
It truly is. The external form, the debt of the prayer, has to yield to the internal direct gift. Now, there is an important exception noted.
Oh, okay. The caveat.
Yes, it keeps things grounded in reality for those with specific duties. If you're a cleric or a religious person who is officially bound to recite the divine office, the formal daily public prayers of the church.
Right, the breviary.
Exactly. Then you do still have to fulfill that obligation. You just arrange to say the office either before this divine visitation happens or after it passes. The debt of the office can't simply be skipped.
Okay, so that specific duty remains. But for any other vocal prayer, personal prayers, voluntary ones,
Divine visitation wins. Every single time. Drop the words, embrace the connection.
that's fascinating. Okay, so we have this path. Constant desire, priority on inner connection. But obviously this journey happens in the messy, real world, full of people, conflict, distractions.
Yeah.
The treatise calls holy prayer the soul's weapon against adversaries. What's the key strategy? How do you use that weapon, especially against difficult people or situations?
Well, it identifies the main adversaries clearly. There's the devil, trying to make prayer feel boring or tedious. There are bodily distractions, fidgeting, discomfort. And then, importantly, there are the words of any creature, what people say or do.
Okay, so how do you defend against that last one, the words of creatures? This is where it gets practical for daily life.
And here comes another one of its really radical practical rules, maybe the most challenging one. For maintaining your inner purity and freedom, the single rule is this: never judge the will of man in anything that you may see done or said by any creature whatsoever.
Never judge the will. Okay, hold on. That's huge. I mean, I get not judging minor things, maybe misunderstandings, but what if you see something that is clearly, objectively wrong, a blatant sin, or someone deliberately hurts you? You're saying don't judge their intention, their will.
That's exactly what it says. Don't judge the will. And the reason is entirely about protecting your own soul, maintaining your connection to God.
How does judging their will harm me?
Because, according to the treatise, the moment you judge the evil will of your neighbor, the moment you decide that person meant to harm me, they did that out of malice, you immediately fall into contempt for them.
Contempt. Yeah, I could see that.
And that feeling of contempt, it argues, instantly breaks your union with God. It slams the door shut on spiritual perfection. You simply cannot proceed if you're holding contempt.
So it's not really about letting the other person off the hook, is it? It's purely strategic for my own spiritual state.
Precisely. It's about protecting your focus. Your job, the text says, is to only consider God's will in every single circumstance.
Okay, give me an example. Let's say a coworker actively sabotages my work. It's clear, it's malicious. How do I apply this rule without just denying reality?
You don't deny the act. The act happened. The sabotage is real. The harm is real. But you must refuse to judge the will behind it. Instead, you reframe it.
Reframe it how?
You judge that God's will permitted this injury, this sin, this sabotage, specifically in order to test and prove your virtue.
Wow.
The person doing the harm. You are to view them as merely the instrument that God's permissive will is using for your spiritual growth. They are the tool for the test.
See the person hurting me as God's instrument? That's incredibly hard.
Yeah.
But I see the logic. If they're just an instrument, I don't fall into contempt for their intention.
Exactly. You sidestep the contempt. You can maintain love of neighbor, perhaps pity for the instrument, while simultaneously accepting the painful event as part of God's proving ground for you.
And that keeps your inner peace intact, even when attacked. That's how souls in the unitive state manage it.
It's the only way, according to this text. They maintain peace because they've cut away the root cause of their own stumbling blocks, which is their own reactive, judgmental will. They just accept.
This level of attainment sounds, well, extraordinary, almost superhuman. Does the treatise offer any proof, like examples of people who actually reached this state?
Oh yes, absolutely. It grounds the teaching in historical examples to show it is possible. First, it points to the apostolic figures, Peter and the other disciples.
How so?
It says they lost their imperfections and achieved perfection precisely through this path, through intense watching and prayer, especially after their earlier failures.
And then it mentions Paul, doesn't it? Calls him God's glorious standard bearer.
Paul is presented as a prime example. He had that incredible contemplative experience being drawn up into the third heaven, tasting God's truth directly.
Right.
And what was the result? After that illumination, he actively desired to suffer for Christ while running his course. The deep sight led directly to embracing the cross, not avoiding it.
That's powerful. It also talks about intellectual scholars reaching this state.
Yes, very much so. It mentions the great doctors and saints people like Thomas Aquinas, Augustine, Jerome, Gregory. The treatise insists their profound understanding of Scripture wasn't just down to brilliant minds.
It was something more.
It says they were illuminated by supernatural light. Their wisdom was fundamentally rooted in that divine light, that grace of faith and charity. That's what allowed them to cut through errors and shine like lamps for the church.
And this perfection wasn't just for contemplatives or scholars, right? It extended to leaders, too.
Definitely. It talks about holy ministers and pastors becoming like true sons, guardians, inspirers of good thoughts, even possessing the grace of prophecy sometimes. The path is open to different roles.
So, for all these souls who follow this demanding path, what's the ultimate achievement? You mentioned the unitive state. What's life like there?
Well, the text says these souls have essentially slain their own will. Completely. They're now clothed in God's will.
Clothed in God's will.
Meaning they accept everything that God permits, good, bad, painful, confusing, with this deep, profound reverence. It says they are fed at the table of the most holy cross. They embrace suffering willingly.
And there's a reward even in this life.
Yes. They receive what the treatise beautifully calls the earnest money of eternal life, a down payment, a real taste of that ultimate union while still here in their mortal bodies.
The earnest money. I like that. So they experience union, but is it pure bliss?
It's described as a state of simultaneous blessing and grief. They are incredibly blessed by this union with God, tasting heaven already. Yet because of that closeness, they're also perpetually sorrowful over the offenses committed against God and the world. They feel both joy and pain acutely.
That really brings the entire journey together. It starts with that intense desire and self-knowledge, moves through embracing difficulty, prioritizing interconnection, reframing judgment. It's a complete overhaul, isn't it?
A total transformation. It leaves absolutely no room for half measures or casual spirituality. Perfection, in this view, means a total surrender of your will to the demands of pure love.
Thank you. That was quite a deep dive into a very demanding but fascinating path. The treatise really hammers home that the road to perfection is the way of Christ crucified.
And the weapon you need is prayer, but grasped firmly with the hand of love.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening based on this.
Perhaps consider that really challenging but potentially liberating idea about judgment. Think about the practical difference in your own life between judging someone's act, which we often have to do ethically, versus judging their will, their inner intention. If you could genuinely commit, even in small steps, to seeing the person who causes you pain, not as malicious, but simply as an instrument God is permitting for your growth, how might that radically change your own inner emotional world? Could it guarantee your peace?